Television is crucial for communication, and it holds great political power. Representation matters. Without it, your voice and identity is stifled. The golden age of television did not hold its luster for any minority. The early days of television in the 1950s and 60s deepened racial divisions by offering an intentionally skewed version of reality. Television was a new and exciting medium that showed the lives of normal families. But no blacks were to be found in this excessively normal world on display. These stereotypes of black people have been active for so long that these representations can occur unconsciously. If an individual chooses to accept stereotypes on television, it can influence the way in which they perceive and interact with African Americans in social situations. The early roles for people of color were slavery stereotypes, carried over from vaudeville, film, and radio. These traits can be found in how blacks were represented in television. Roles for people of color were isolated to stereotypes.
The Beulah Show.
Who spends most of her time in the kitchen, but never seems to know what's cooking.
Amos and Andy were black jesters. Beulah was the mammy role. Julia was a show about a single black mother raising her son after her husband was killed in the line of duty. But in reality, segregation was still at play, and blacks were not treated equally. On I Spy and Mission Impossible, two top spy shows, had black secret agents. But again, segregation was still playing in the real world. Such opportunities were not available to people of color. Star Trek was a show where all races came together to provide a better future. Norman Lear provided a string of hit comedies starring black actors, but at the core of each of his roles embodies the stereotype. Comedian Flip Wilson had the #1 show on television. His sketch comedy brought in black producers that played against the stereotypes in his favor. Roots was a miniseries that offered a game-changing perspective, showing the harsh visuals of slavery. The 1980s, inclusion began to pick up steam. The Cosby Show was a modern family comedy, but still an out-of-touch view for most black Americans. A Different World showed black college students moving into the world. Shows like Different Strokes and Webster were hits, but they included a jester role and a broken black family. Family Matters was a sitcom. It was a strong family-centric show until it was overtaken by the jester role of Steve Urkel.
Very inspiring.
All right.
Oprah Winfrey was a talented news reporter that broke into the popular white male-orientated daytime tabloid talk show genre. As her success grew, it forced the industry to take notice of black women voices as producers. The 1990s was the breakout decade of black representation on television. There was a huge boom in situational comedies, drama, and miniseries that starred black actors. New networks like Fox, the WB, and UPN were a hub for a string of shows that provided a realistic representation of people of color, like Martin and Living Single, The Jamie Foxx Show, Sister Sister. In Living Color was a trailblazing sketch comedy show by black writers and producers. Like Flip Wilson in the 70s, this show gave a platform to show diversity and also biting social commentary playing against stereotypes. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was another breakthrough sitcom that tapped a diverse audience. Like Good Times, at its core of its success still embodied the traits of stereotypes, yet in a softer light. The popularity of crime dramas began to have more of a melting pot dynamic. The 2000s were the decades that proved black voices at the head of the production and writing, and at networks were finally getting the traction necessary to make radical changes to show how people of color are portrayed on television. The push for representation was slowly being unchallenged. Now, inclusion is seen as the standard. Negative stereotypes have dropped in occurrences. People of color are now in the writing room, and at the heads of networks. Viewers today are enjoying a wide range of positive representation of people of color. It's amazing to think how the next 60 years will be like and how it will shape the next generation.